could you just recap how wayfinding, how we see as a manufacturer wayfinding working in this particular sector?
Yes, I mean, effectively, it's combining a fire system interacting with the emergency lighting, so that I mean, a system that we worked on, others are available, of course, is that on the first instance of when a fire is detected, say in a stairwell, the exit sign will change from the green running man, as it's known, and have a red cross through it, so effectively blocking that exit. Now the important thing is that it is purely on the first instance, because to initially get people out of the building in the right direction, if that fire starts to spread and then more and more signs are turning red, then that can cause more confusion, more ambiguity. So it's very important to do it right and do it in combination with the fire system manufacturer, so that we're not adding to the problem, we are actually sort of reducing the problem. So effectively it reduces any, as I say, ambiguity of getting out of a building where you may have more than one fire exit. And very often when we're doing lighting designs, we have to consider that, say, a long corridor would have an exit sign at each end. Which way do you go? Is it the nearest one? People just wouldn't know. They would tend to go for the nearest one. So if you take that choice away and say, okay, this is the safe exit from the building, it makes things a lot safer and a lot quicker, particularly, as I said earlier, for people with dementia and who may not have the cognitive ability that the average person would have.
Yeah, Gracie Court was a prime example of a fire escape system in the care home sector. The luminance was designed obviously to comply with BS 5266, but it's a self-test addressable system, which basically makes it a lot easier for the owner of the building, the duty holder for the care home, to manage. As I mentioned before, BS 5266 mentions the requirement for a full rated discharge once a year, but it also said it puts responsibility on the end user to manage that risk of being totally without emergency lighting for a period of 24 hours while the emergency lights recharge. So what is an option that's possible with the addressable self-test systems is to group the luminaires, so that the one group would be, let's say, a quarter of the system. It would test devices strategically around the care home, but it would leave other devices in the area that are fully up and running and ready for a discharge if need be, while the others are discharging. So it's measures like that are available to self-test addressable systems, i.e. fire escape. Thank you, Callum. But that's just some of the features, and that's why really, and obviously the consultants, is very important from the design stage to ensure that measures like this can be addressed, so the end users are complying with their obligations in the fire safety order, but also leaving their residents with as little risk of dark corridors as possible.
Obviously, emergency lighting is not just for fire instances. I mean, we have a system that works with the fire system, but it's there for power cuts mainly, and that's what they're invented for, isn't it? So if there's a power cut at night time, you don't want people wandering around in pitch black areas. So is there a specific guidance or anything from your side, Andy, that you advise your members about dealing with power outages?
We would just expect that people would have a 3-hour system that would be effective. Obviously, we know that most of them go beyond 3 hours, especially with LEDs now, as opposed to the older bulkheads, which are a nightmare. We would probably talk more about backup for the power, especially air mattresses, which people rely on to reduce pressure sores that are a problem when the power fails, and also other things that start and kick in after time when the power's out. Within the company I work for, Barchester, we have an emergency grab bag, which is a red rucksack, and normally several torches or wind-up torches are in there that have been, to be honest, a godsend. After 5 hours after the power failure, the lighting started to dim, and those torches were just, £1 torch now was just amazing. So it's just, we wouldn't get into the British standards, and we would just presume people would be aware of everything.
I wanted to loop back to false alarms, Simon, because we've had previous discussions about how multi-sensors have a role in reducing false alarms, and I was just going to see if I could get you to comment on, are they a preferred choice for this particular sector in reducing false alarms? Do you have an opinion on that?
Well, certainly the use of a multi-sensor detector can definitely help to reduce false alarms, particularly with common causes. And I think we touched on common causes earlier, didn't we? And I think Andy definitely said, I think cooking and burning of toast and such like. So they can definitely help reduce false alarms. And one of the common causes is obviously cooking, steam, dust and aerosol sprays. So 100% a multi-sensor will definitely assist with reduction of false alarms. And clearly a multi-sensor uses a combination of more than one sensor type. So a multi-sensor obviously uses a combination of smoke, heat or carbon monoxide to detect the presence of a fire. So yes, definitely help with the reduction because of the combination that a multi-sensor uses.
There's also something that's, I don't know if it's specific to our ESP product group, but our with the multi-sensors, you can actually set up cause and effect within the one sensor. So as soon as it detects smoke, it can raise an alarm which would be non-latching at the panel, which could be maybe a beacon in the resident manager's office, just to notify them of the first stage of an alarm condition. And then the sensor would change its operating mode to heat only. So then if it is an actual fire and it develops, the heat, obviously the increase in heat picked up by the sensor, and that would then go into a latching evacuation situation from that point. But that's something that can be done within the device.
You've obviously trained in Watts, you train FIA, who are very hot on multi-sensors and promoting multi-sensors. Can you explain, there is a definition of a true multi-sensor, isn't there?
Yes, as opposed to obviously the combination of heat and smoke, the challenge is that one could be set purely to be either heat or smoke, but a pure multi-sensor is one that adapts and works correctly and benefits the system from its understanding of either element, in other words both situations. It's a phenomenal benefit, and it's really where we perhaps sit further with this coincidence detection and that filtering process, as opposed to the older terminology of double knock. But yeah.
Can I just bring up the topic, we talked about multi-sensors, can I just bring up the topic about wireless systems and hybrid wireless systems? There's a case to be had, isn't there, about particularly the speed of install, I'm thinking, to reduce time on site. And also the fact that they can be remotely maintained. Has anybody got a view on that? I think it's quite a hot topic at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, the whole concept of wireless systems is to reduce the installation time. Obviously, contact or potential infection with obviously COVID-19 is reduced because of the reduced time that you need to spend in each particular room. So yes, there are great advantages, and the technology that's out there now is much more robust, much more. The integrity is much higher now with wireless technology now than it was, I'll say, a few years ago. But also, again, we mentioned multi-sensors. Multi-sensor technology is available with the wireless range as well. But also the VADs, there is potential for them to be used for wayfinding, which was obviously one of the points in the agenda. But the technology is out there to be able to offer the wayfinding capability with wireless equipment. But I think when it gets to that point, when it gets to the wayfinding capability, I think it needs to be managed very finely, very what's the word I'm looking for? In great detail, because the last thing you want to be doing is leading people to the wrong exit. So I think the whole wayfinding concept, the wayfinding principle, needs to be managed very carefully. But the technology is out there for it to be utilised wisely.
I fully agree with that, Martin. And indeed, there are developments in the standards as we're working through within Europe, and CEN 169 Working Group 3 has a technical subcommittee working on dynamic safety signage systems. The interesting scenario is that it's not, interesting scenario, and I do apologise, it's my emergency lighting excitement spilling out now. But, from having done emergency lighting for 30 years, to be able to route people to the ultimate place of safety does create some quite good interest for me. But I also understand, though, the cause and effect scenario for the responsible person potentially routing someone to the wrong place, the wrong environment, and your diligence in supporting and suggesting that if one negated route is occurred, then a second negated route can't occur, because otherwise you've got nowhere to go. So the full compliance of Hochiki systems to the product standard EN 6598222 for the luminaires is absolutely critical, and everything we're doing in development of a new standard is highlighting it's not appropriate to supply non-approved products. It's been historical that it's capable of supplying non-certified, non-approved products in the UK market for emergency lighting. We'd never consider that for fire. Why is it legally acceptable for emergency lighting? But it is. And of course you can risk assess, and you can suggest it's okay, and you can use a torch, but that torch really ought to be approved to EN 6598222 to keep your mind comfortable that it will work when required.
Can I touch upon maintenance? And obviously Simon will have a view on this, and how he's had to adapt, or his company's had to adapt to maintenance, particularly during the pandemic. I think we touched upon it earlier, but is there anything that you can suggest that would reduce the amount of time spent on site?
Well, I think as a service company, we probably, through the pandemic, it's been very difficult for everybody. Within the care home sector in particularly, we've probably had to put certain service restrictions in place where we've possibly not been able to enter residents' bedrooms in particular. Sure, Andy's got plenty of experience with people being isolated within their rooms. So possibly on the service schedule, we've serviced the detection and field devices within areas that are maybe not as accessible by residents. So this would probably be the common areas within the care home, plant rooms, roof voids, etc., etc. And we've then also probably implemented in some instances, 4 visits per annum rather than 2 visits per annum to try and reduce the amount of time that we've been at the care home as well.
Yeah.
So it's typically undertaking 25% test of field devices rather than 50% on a biannual visit.
Yeah, understood. And there's scope to interrogate the system from the panel, isn't there? So you could argue that there is a lot that can be done from the communal area where you would presume the panel is, but there's a legal requirement to visually inspect, which you wouldn't be able to do if you had to enter an apartment or a private room.
I think, as I said, we've really implemented increased visits. So rather than biannual, we've moved to quarterly visits with a lot of care home customers. And really, as I said, that eliminates possibly going behind a closed door within somebody's bedroom. When they come out of their 14-day isolation period, then we can possibly go into that room on the next visit. So I think that's just helped greatly with a physical inspection, and where we do have to go behind closed doors, that's definitely helped. Another alternative, I guess, is to utilise 2 technicians rather than 1, and to try and cut down the time on site during the pandemic as well. So yeah, I think they're the main items that we've implemented. I think also maybe a fire panel with a good walk test as well. So I believe there's some systems out there where in the walk test the values at the detector can be reduced, so therefore requiring less smoke to test it, which obviously cuts down the time that you're in a care home as well. Just like to say as well, with the smaller properties that we deal with, so supported and independent living, again, it's been very, very difficult through the pandemic, but some initiatives that we've done there would be to maybe a pre-arranged visit again, where the carers would take the service users out into the garden, weather permitting, whilst we tested everything. Clearly that can't be done in a larger care home, but certainly supported and independent living where we've maybe got 4 to 5 service users, then that's something that we've been undertaking as well. Slightly off subject, I guess, because we're talking about predominantly fire alarms, but with fire extinguishers, we've arranged with care homes that they would bring, the maintenance person would bring all fire extinguishers out into the car park. We would service them, wipe them down, disinfect them, and then the maintenance person would take them back in and put them back in place. Clearly, we're not checking the signs whilst we do that, but we understand it's exceptional circumstances.
I'd like to just summarise then by giving everybody an opportunity to, because obviously the audience watching this recording hopefully will be coming from the care home sector as well as the fire sector, and so it gives us an opportunity, doesn't it, to go around and offer any online support or technical guidance that people can access from each of us. So Andy, would you like to kick off? Where's the best place to get advice for care home owners, managers?
There's lots of sources of advice. The HSE's website is very, very good for lots of information. The NASHiCS website, it's free to look at information there. Our membership is only something like £60 for a year, which is quite reasonable to get access to a lot of free seminars and other events that go on. There's the fire industry. There is a lot of help, and sometimes a simple Google can send you to the right place. The guidance that came along from the reform order, the residential guidance, is lengthy, but it can be helpful. There's areas within that guidance that will help somebody, but sometimes you need to speak to somebody in the industry to actually interpret it for you so they understand. The other thing to say is that help people watching that a few years ago we tried to think of a simple way of defining what we wanted from a fire incident and what we wanted the staff and how we wanted it all to work, and it all got joined up in one day with 3 simple things. We use the 3 C's to train people now, which is communicate, command and control. And we believe in the care industry, if you've got those 3 things in place, nobody will lose their life.
Ian Watts.
Well, in my day role as a business development for Llumarlite, who are a lighting design consultancy, we sit in almost a similar context with review, refresh, replace. And these 3 R's are an ability for us to review properties and check that they are hopefully in line with compliance. It's about a suitable development of that fire safety risk assessment to then meet the requirements of BS 5266 for emergency lighting. There are auditable documents at the back of the standard, and it's wonderful if we can at least align those and correct them. Thank you very much.
And Simon, from Church's point of view, what online resources would you direct people to?
Church's Fire and Security do produce a number of educational videos which we place on our website around all different sectors, so including the healthcare sector, housing, education, etc., which are very informative and can be used. But I think also that in actual fact the government produce a number of useful documents as well with reference to fire risk assessments within residential care premises. I do believe that the Department of Health also produce technical memorandums which would be of use. And likewise, Church's Fire have third-party accreditation with companies such as BAFE, which is produce their own resources as well. And likewise, people like the FIA, the Fire Industry Association, produce resources that I'm sure all care homes would find useful as well.
And Martin, from Hochiki's point of view?
Yes, thank you, Paul. Our website, there's lots of information on our website, guides to both the British Standard for Fire Alarm Systems, BS 5839, also the Emergency Lighting Standard, BS 5266, and it goes into detail. It's not intended to be the standard, but it gives people, the end users, the guidance that they need, certainly from the design perspective, but even down to the maintenance perspective as well for the engineers that are maintaining the systems. It gives them good guidance that's either in their pockets or on their phones to be able to actually maintain the systems competently. Also on the website, thank you, Paul.
If anybody wants a copy of these, just contact Hochiki and we'll send you free of charge.
Thank you, Paul. But yes, certainly. I mean, within the business, all of our RSMs and obviously our emergency lighting business manager, we have the competence and the confidence to assist the end users and consultants and people with designs for the system to ensure that there's the fully compliant systems being installed as per the end user's requirements right from the get-go.
Okay.
But I would thank you, as also Simon said as well. I would point people to the Fire Industry Association website, but also the Lighting Industry Association website as well, and ICEL, because there's a lot of information there as well with regard to emergency lighting.